So and I'm sure each of you are going through a lot of stress, especially with the lockdown in place, of how to manage children. There have been some common questions that majority of the parents have been asking us and are worried about it. And I thought we'll have an approach to how to actually handle children at home. So this is predominantly for parents about how to manage children during these tough times. Let me just share my screen. What we'll do is, so let me just put on full screen. So what to look out for over the next few minutes is something about the ABCD approach. And when I say ABCD, I mean activity, breathing exercises, communication, diet, and then a little bit on the vaccines, COVID care and etiquette, health. And then I'll request our lovely Mayur to go through the questions in the chat, and we'll address each of your queries as possible. So when we say activity, we need to remember that activity definitely leads to productivity, but how do we get it right for our children? The right mix is to make sure that the children have a good combination of physical activity, of stimulating mental activity, some creativity, and rest time. So I would like to say that all parents need to think about how to schedule it. Okay, children are very, very routine driven. So it's absolutely important to make sure that there is a mixture of activities, but there is something that the child looks forward to. So it needs to have a right balance of that and try to make it as much as possible as a fun or a family activity. It is absolutely vital to remember that screen time is something, because of online classes, you don't have a choice but to go ahead with that. They have to watch the screen for a significant amount of time during the school hours. So try to come up with some kind of equibalence there. What we are recommending is, and I'm sure most of the schools are now doing it, and most of the teachers are doing it, is to actually make sure that at the end of every 20 minutes, the child is staring off screen and looking for at least 20 seconds at something that is far off at 20 feet. So it's important to follow that 20-20-20 rule to make sure that the children's eyes and vision is not affected. So that pause and break for every 20 minutes is really needed. The activity that we request most of the families to have it is more schedule that involves you as a parent as well as the child, other children, wherever possible. So make sure that you take this as an opportunity to involve the children, plan the event together, schedule it, come up with a list of activities that makes the child physically active as well as creatively active. I hope I've made myself clear about how to plan the activities for the children. Overcrowding is not practical. Some indoor games, some outdoor games, and make sure that the social distancing is maintained at all times. Take this as an opportunity to make the children get involved in their regular activities, regular chores, self-care, self-grooming. These are all opportunities to get it through at this time. For that to happen, we really have to be good role models. So there is no other shortcut. Children mirror their parents, so we ourselves have to get our act together. And we should take this as an opportunity, because now almost for 24/7, the children are like boxed up with their parents. The second thing, there's been lots of discussion about breathing exercises for children. Something to think about, actually it is not to prevent COVID as such or to prepare them for COVID. But breathing exercises are generally something we recommend basically to allow the child to get some self-control or active, or feel like, they can control themselves a bit better in terms of their focus, their concentration, and their abilities to handle things. There are lots of activities available for children of various ages. So we can't ask a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old to actually do yoga, or a 8-year-old to kind of do some basic activities. So it's important to streamline things better for the children. There are lots of activities such as there's balloon breaths or blowing the candles, doing box breathing, the diaphragmatic breathing, the 5-finger breathing, the rainbow breathing. All these are different varieties. I'm happy to move about it. And there are various online sessions for children as well, so that you learn how to do these kind of breathing activities. The time duration that you need to facilitate this could be anything between like 10 to 30 minutes in a day. So that's a fun activity for them. We make sure that children come up with different types of breathing activities over the course of the day. And it need not be like, now is the breathing time, now you sit down and do it. It's not really needed to be so regimented, but come up with different activities. Children are so good and they enjoy these activities so well. And you will see the difference in the way the child actually responds. Now for the C, good communication. Now, I hear lots of parents complaining about their children not able to control themselves, throwing tantrums, and they're finding it so frustrating. They're not knowing how to express themselves. They're actually, misbehaving. That's what the parents feel. They find it very difficult to control themselves. The child is throwing things. This is what I hear most of the parents complaining, because they don't have any other way to express themselves. So what, as a parent, can you do to make sure that the child is not in any of these moods that the picture is depicting? So a few things. First of all, I want the parent themselves to feel in control. There may be a time where you feel that it is better to postpone the communication than to actually actively engage in the conversation or raise your voice or, control the child. When a child is angry, it's important as a parent for you to calm yourself down, come up with different techniques. Each child and each parent has a different technique that works for their child. It's quite important to recognize what works when for your particular situation. So it may be right for some time, for a situation, to ignore it, or it may be something that you can sit down and talk about it, or you may think about distracting the child. So whichever it is, come up with a strategy. That's what is more important. Think about actively listening to your child. Get your child to express themselves, to understand really what is it that is frustrating them or upsetting them. Okay, it may be something reasonable or something totally unreasonable. Say, for example, we want to extend our screen time, or we want to continue with one particular activity, or they don't want to do some certain activities that they're meant to do. So whatever it is, do active listening. Come up with some kind of strategy that helps your child cope with these things better. And we always say, rather than telling, don't do this, don't do that, that just makes the child want to do things more. I'm sure every parent agrees with that. The most important thing is to make sure that the child is heard to, and once they know, come up with a strategy of how to handle it better. Your child will be able to tell things better. So make them psychologically safe, make yourself psychologically safe to express what needs to be done. A few things about, one more thing which I want to reinforce is, always at the end of the day, come up with a strategy, talk to your child and find out what went well for them that day and what they would want to do differently. You will be amazed to see how children come up with different strategies with how their day went. What you may think is very important may be nothing, and what you would have thought is very trivial may be a big thing for your child. So come up with that conversation daily. Try to connect with your child at a level that helps them feel more safe to be with you, to express their thoughts. Now to do with the D, which is the diet. I hear lots of parents asking us about the immune boosting diet, about supplements. I'm sorry to say your child is, your child cannot beat COVID by just diet alone, by activity alone, or by just breathing activity, breathing exercises alone. It's a combination of everything, but most important is the COVID etiquette. So let's think about from the diet aspect of it, what is it that you can do to manage your child in a healthy way? So the basic rule still holds true, which is a good balanced diet. Okay. A good balanced diet is something which has got a good portion of fruits and vegetables, and it can be in any forms, such as soups, smoothies, different salads, or the cooked vegetables, and come up with at least different strategies for your child that allows them to take different colored vegetables, getting them to have a touch, feel, selecting, and positive reinforcement is what helps the child to do it. And we ourselves as parents need to be role models for bringing about this change. What I found in the last wave was children who were obese. They were the ones who actually had, moderate to severe COVID illness. They needed hospitalizations. The undernourished needed longer time to recover from COVID illness. So it's important that we get the diet right for the children. Although I wouldn't say that it is an immune boosting diet that you have to give, it is a general rule of thumb to give normal balanced diet for your child. You don't need to do anything extraordinary of adding supplements, adding extra vitamin D, vitamin C. All these are not really needed. It is basic etiquette of getting the diet. No force feeding and no snacking. We've seen children kind of sitting there less active, but munching more, snacking more. And sometimes parents are like, they're time bound and they end up force feeding or giving the devices and distraction feeding. So try to avoid these kind of activities just to get your child to eat. An active child is a healthy child. That's the bottom line. So it is not just the weight per se, it is how active your child is with the regular diet that your child takes. So then a little bit about the shots, okay? So vaccines, we need to make sure, we have the advantage in India that we give BCG vaccines to almost all children at birth. So as such, they have that protective effect. Then we have for the under fives, we have 2 doses of MMR that we have given, and for an annual flu vaccine that we give. Now, these are not specifically meant to prevent COVID or deal with COVID better. I don't want to claim that. What we found was children who were vaccinated with these shots generally did well. Okay, so let me just make it very clear. We don't want added burden of flu to contribute to the COVID illness. This way, we had quite a few children who came in with COVID pneumonia and they needed to go on the ventilator. So it's quite important to make sure that, you don't have the seasonal flu adding to the burden. Okay. If your child has got illnesses such as asthma or obesity or asthma, diabetes, any other comorbid, say heart, blood, any other problem, say thalassemia, leukemia, any of those, just discuss with your pediatrician. These are the comorbid children who tend to get affected with COVID illness, and they need to be admitted to the hospital. So if they are vulnerable and over 5 years, then we do recommend the shot of flu vaccine, probably as a added thing, not as a preventive thing for COVID illness. About the COVID etiquette, I'm very, very pleased to see lots of children who come to our clinic for their regular vaccinations are masked up. They come in, they ask for the hand hygiene immediately. They know how to do their hand sanitization. And so I'm quite happy that the kids are doing a good job there. So I would recommend to continue with that COVID etiquette. I know lots of parents are now getting vaccinated, and it's a very welcome change for the families, because the 18 plus are the ones who are now getting prioritized. Our children are not yet getting it under 18. Vaccine trials are on. We will take some time to get this through. Let us see that, just because we are vaccinated as parents, we don't just take it very lightly. We continue to protect our children with ongoing COVID etiquette, which will include hand sanitization, social distancing, and masking the right way, covering the nose and the mouth. I know that the lockdown is going to be relaxed very soon. I know people will feel safe because they are vaccinated. I must tell you, the second wave was very challenging for us. We had quite a few admissions happening in the intensive care, mainly because the children were affected. Unfortunately, many of the parents could not be there to take care of their children whilst they were battling COVID in the ICU. One of the reasons was that most of the parents themselves were unwell because of COVID illness. Now, if at all those parents are vaccinated now, we expect those parents may be by the bedside if the child gets affected in the future. But it is important that parents do not go lax about the COVID etiquette because just because you're vaccinated. So please follow the etiquette. Most importantly, if you get the A, B, C, D, and the vaccines right, hopefully we will have a better opportunity to beat the COVID rather than preventing it fully or treating it fully. We all have to accept that it is possible that the third wave will happen. And if it does happen, we are all prepared for it. We now know more about the illness. In children, we see different presentations. Most of the time, it is either a family member or somebody was positive, and then the child gets incidentally tested, and they may find that the child is positive. Alternatively, the child has some other surgery or vaccination or travel or something planned, and so they go get their tests done, and then they are found to be positive. We find that those are the asymptomatic phase of the illness. Then there is the mild illness where the child actually comes with minor symptoms, say a little bit of stuffy nose, little bit of cough or cold, and then or fever, but they all settle with symptomatic care. And such children, we're not giving any fancy medications. We're not doing any major tests for these children. If they're positive, we still recommend to manage these children at home. We suggest that they get a video consultation done with their pediatrician and then be managed at home as much as possible. Then there is the moderate illness where these children can be a little bit dehydrated, or they have taken less food, or they have a little bit of cough that is making them to vomit. they're unable to keep down fluids, they're feeling a little bit tired. Such children end up, may or may not need hospitalization, depending on how the pediatrician feels about the child's condition. And then there is the severe illness. Now, these are some of the children, especially the comorbid children who have other illnesses such as asthma, obesity, or seizures, neurodisability, any other associated illnesses. These are the children who will need intensive care support. They will need oxygenation. They may have COVID pneumonia. They may need to be admitted to the intensive care and need even ventilatory support. So this is the severe illness. Then there is a subgroup who they may have a mild illness during the initial presentation, and 2 to 6 weeks after them being positive may have resurgence of their symptoms, predominantly as fever, sometimes swelling in the neck, sometimes red lips or red tongue, beefy red tongue, skin rashes, diarrheal illness, severe tummy pain. These illnesses may present, and if your child had acute COVID illness and then recovered, but 2 to 6 weeks later came up with high-grade fever, such children need to be seen by the pediatrician because there's a condition called MISC, which is multi-inflammatory syndrome in children. These are the children that may need specific investigations and then specific treatment for that. The good news is children do very well after COVID illness. What we found is about out of 100 children, if they got COVID positivity, we found deaths in about 2 or 2.5%. That is the mortality rate. And those who died did not die predominantly of COVID illness, but more because COVID exaggerated their underlying comorbid problems. This is what we have found. So the good news is children will be able to manage better. However, we have our responsibility to protect them and take care of them. Whilst we are going through all the COVID restrictions, I thought the A, B, C, D, if we get that right, we will be able to make this a bit smoother ride for these children through this tough times. I'm now happy to take any questions. Let me stop sharing. Okay.
If anybody has any questions, please you can raise your hands and you can switch on your mic. Yes, you can raise your hand, so I'll just unmute you. Okay. Yes, Ms. Ashwini, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, doctor. Good evening. Hello, doctor. Good evening. Can you hear me? Hello. Hello, doctor. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I'm Ashwini. I'm actually diabetic, and both children are like one is 16-year-old and one is 10-year-old. Both are little bit overweight itself, not very thin. But how can I take care of them?
Okay.
Is this influenza vaccine also helps?
Yeah. I wouldn't say that just because they will get the influenza vaccine that they will be protected, but yeah, from the other illnesses they can. And in terms of obesity, have you consulted anybody to understand what is the reason and how we can actually get their things sorted out, or is it familiar?
Not yet, ma'am.
It might be worthwhile looking into it and see whether anything can be done to investigate why if at all they're overweight. And if there are any rectifiable things, then we can address it at a very early stage and prepare them.
Okay.
So that's
Okay.
my suggestion for your child.
Now the 16-year-old and the 10-year-old both can take influenza vaccine, ma'am.
They can take, yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you.
So usually it is the endocrinologist who deals with obesity. So it might be worthwhile consulting them.
Hello.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, ma'am. Actually, my son is 2.1-year-old. So, can you? He is very. I mean, not that much thin. His weight is 11.5, but he won't eat like fruits or anything. He will eat very less, ma'am. And also, the potty. He is by going by. I mean, he is not sitting and going, but he just stands and he will do toilet.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
So this age group is a very tricky group, okay? And you are not alone. Almost every toddler tends to have what we call habitual constipation. They tend to hold, okay? Because they're getting to know how to do things, okay? So this one will get better with time, okay? It's about just making sure that you give them enough time to sit on the potty and you can set a routine for them. Normally, after eating food, 10 to 15 minutes, they actually have something called gastrocolic reflex. That means whatever goes into the stomach, it gives like a signal to down below to say, you know, the food is going to come, so you can empty. So we make use of that particular aspect of it. So after a meal or something like that, 10 to 15 minutes, you get them to sit on the potty as a routine. You don't need to force them. They don't have to do the potty at that time. They just have to get the etiquette of going and sitting there just as a routine. Eventually, over the next couple of months, the child will feel more confident and then do it. Okay. It should not be a forced activity. It should just be a gradual, scheduled, routine activity without any forcing. Okay. We also tell, to do some positive reinforcement. So we normally get the child to feel good about it by getting a star or a smiley sticker. So it's just setting the routines right for the child. So that's about the habitual constipation part of it. Then when it comes to eating the healthy diet is always very tricky. So there are ways to do it where, you can put the pureed vegetables and things like that, mix it with the regular diet and camouflage it, and then keep as a routine, okay, something or the other that goes to the child.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, and also while he going to the toilet, just he's like hardening, ma'am. Yes, hard, getting
Yeah.
very not soft, ma'am. It is hard actually.
So that is also very common because they tend to hold for quite some time. So that is why, yeah, it'll get better with time. Okay. Sometimes you may need to use medications briefly for a couple of weeks, just so that the stools are very soft and the child feels comfortable doing the potty. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. I have one question. When will vaccination begin for kids? Piyusha Patil. So we don't know. We have to watch the space. Hopefully soon. I know in the UK, we've started giving it to 12 years and plus. In India, we are still, doing the trials. So hopefully soon. So we'll need to watch the space. Nehal, my 2-year, 11-month-old used to eat fruits earlier, but now her tastes have changed. She doesn't eat much fruits. Yeah, this is a variable thing. This is something you will see in most of the children. And so it is better to keep rotating so that they don't get used to one particular thing. Okay. So rotation and giving fruits in different forms will really make a difference. Okay. different textures, different tastes, different combinations. Okay, all of these will make a change. Okay. So, Pragya there? Okay.
Amit, you can go ahead.
Sure. Ma'am, thank you very much for the session. It has been very helpful. Question, ma'am, we've not been taking our 6-year-old out for like cycling, walking, playing since a very long time because of many mixed messages that we've been getting that it is airborne and things like that. What is your recommendation, ma'am? How long can we take her out for physical activities, and can we take her out for walk? What is your recommendation?
Yeah. So as long as, you have, if the child is having the mask on, okay, and if the child is asymptomatic, for up to half an hour is absolutely fine. Just make sure that the social distance is maintained. About the airborne thing, it is true. It is airborne. We do recommend them to mask it up, and that's the best that we can offer at the moment. Okay. Physical activities are needed, if possible, in different environments. We'll have to try. You may not need to do it every single day, but every other day at least. But it's not a major concern. I hope that answers you.
Yeah, ma'am, it sounds like you were telling for children who may have been positive, but I was asking generally.
No, general only.
Okay, sure. Thank you, ma'am.
And then there is one more question from Manjula. Should we get the kids vaccinated for flu? Okay. So under 5 years, annual flu vaccine is something that is part of the routine. I wouldn't fixate on the flu vaccine to be saying that, that has to be done. If there are comorbidities, you don't want additional flu to happen to them. Nowadays, if they're masking up very well, the chances of getting flu is very less. I can tell you out of the universal experience as well that the incidence of flu has come down significantly. All viral infections has come down significantly just because people are following the safe techniques of masking up and hand sanitizing, which is the commonest way that any viral infections spread. So as such, the incidence of flu has come down significantly. Okay. So giving flu vaccines probably will help those who are probably having comorbids and they're over 5 years. That is only to say that you don't want flu to be an additional problem. I wouldn't say that it is absolutely essential that you get it. I hope that answers you, Manjula. And then there's one more thing. Shravani is asking, can I use any formula in milk for my 2-year-old? Yeah. Plain milk is good enough as long as it is given less than 500 ml. We don't want more than that. We don't want milk to be the primary diet for children because there's a risk of iron deficiencies. So formula as such is not really needed. You can add supplements or to make it a bit more flavored, you can add any of the, commercially available items such as Boost or whatever. Okay, that's fine to add on. I hope that answers you. Ekta has got the hands up.
Good evening, doctor. Thank you for the session. I just had a quick question. I have a 6.5-year-old daughter and also an infant at home who is 6 months old. Now, due to being pregnant for 9 months and now having a little one, we have a 6.5-year-old daughter locked up at home since the last March. So she's only been exposed to, senior citizens and parents who are like 35 people who are 35 years old and plus. She's only been interacting through her friends through online mode. We rarely take her down. We've stopped all her physical activities because we're scared because we have an infant at home. We also see a lot of change in her behavior. She's displaying a lot of aggressive behavior. How do you suggest we, try to calm her down or take this forward? Because it is actually becoming a very growing concern. We also have domestic help at home. We see her that she displays a lot of, emotional outbreak, let down, aggressive behavior towards her, who spends an hour or 2 hours during the day to spend time with her and help her play or engage her in activities. But we see that it's just becoming a little bit more disruptive. We also are thinking about probably consulting a psychologist. Can you just lead us to the right way, or how do we go about addressing this issue at home?
Okay. So you're not alone, Ekta, in dealing with this problem. I see almost it's nearly as prevalent as 70 to 80%. Okay. Such behavioral problems have become very, very common. Okay. And the way to handle it is, she's 6.5 to 7 year old, so she will be able to express. Okay. So try to sit down and spend some time to understand what is it that is frustrating her. Okay. Active listening is what will help. And then, you will be amazed if you try talking to your child to ask what is it that they want. Okay. There may be some things that are bothering them. It is worthwhile to just, in an unbiased way, make the child feel safe to express themselves. Okay. The anger, the behavioral expression is only the state of whatever is the state of mind. So their anxieties need to be looked at. It may be something very trivial, like, for example, I want to do this at this particular time. Okay. And that may be enough, but they don't know how to express. It may be that one particular way of a person, like, talking to them may be bothering them. Something very, very trivial, you may find it amazing to just understand how your child thinks. Okay? So I would suggest it may take a week or two for you to get around to that safe point where your child feels safe to express themselves. Okay? So my suggestion is spend some time where actively you can talk to your child. Okay. And then try to understand what their specific concerns are. Okay. And then you can do more like a play therapy. You can just like show how they're going to express themselves, what is good behavior, what is not so good behavior, to make things work. Okay. So role modeling good behavior is quite useful. Say, for example, you have 2 dolls with them, and then they say, so this doll is feeling like, say your child's name is, let's pick a name. So baby Annie. Okay. Ria, you said. Yeah. So this is baby Ria feeling like this. What is Rohan going to do about it? And so Rohan is having the same problem, but he's expressing this way. Okay. Sure. And so then you ask, what would Ria do if Rohan says something like this? So something like that, which is distracting them, but still not putting the focus on the good or bad behavior. So there are a lot of ways to handle things. The most important thing is the child should feel safe to express their concerns. No matter how rushed you are, pause for a little time. And what I have found it useful, and majority of the parents do tell me, is when they sit down and talk to their child, and then they come up with solutions. The child themselves come up with solutions of what works and what doesn't work. Okay, sure. They're fairly reasonable. And beyond that, if you think that your child is struggling to express themselves, what is it that is bothering them? Definitely take the help of a psychologist in that. Sure. Or if you find that I'm not so sure that I understand, or I don't know how to approach this, or any such things, take the guidance of the psychologist. That may definitely help you. Sure. In streamlining the thoughts better. Communication is a big challenge. but it definitely, if you get it right and get the right balance and just making the child safe to express themselves, it definitely helps you to, handle those anxieties more in a targeted way, rather than a generic one, don't do this, don't do that. It's not going to work, okay? I also find lots of parents telling that my child is refusing to sit in their online class. They're not able to concentrate. I'm quite concerned. And I always say the same thing, get them the right environment for that. So your child is like probably using the mobile phone to actually access their online class. So if necessary, they need to get that, school feeling for them. Okay. So if it helps your child to wear the uniform and sit there, and get the right routines. So you can create the school space for them so that they know that it's only at the school time that they are going to occupy that particular seat or that particular area, and kind of get them the feel, the distinction feel that, no, that is school area, that is the school time, and they're going to do it this way. And then some positive reinforcement, give a little bit of leeway, even when the child is in the school, who knows how much they're concentrating 100%. So it may not be possible. And so give them that leeway. Make sure that you understand what the learning objectives of that training session or of that day was, and try to kind of patch it up over the course of the week to make sure that the child has caught up with what he or she is expected to learn during that time. So you can more like complement or supplement it eventually.
All right. Thank you so much, Doctor. That really helps. Thank you very much.
I have a couple of other things. So, madam, any data of its impact in Western countries in children didn't seem much on news too. Is it precautionary or are we excessively worrying? So what data are we talking about? So VP is the one who's asked that question.
Madam, good evening. Whether you take US or UK, any of these countries, we have not seen children getting impacted much. And yes, there are some fatalities over there, but not children. In even they got the wave 3 and things like that. So no, any reason why no the guidelines are that maybe in the next wave the children will be the most impacted. So there would be some or some maths logic to do that. So I just because if I follow the trend, it was not the case in other countries. So I just thought if there is some data supporting it.
Okay, there's a fantastic data available. Okay, roughly 2.5% of children who are positive across the world have been, that's the data, even in the West, similar to what we have in India as well. Okay. Whatever I shared about things as something that I've seen in my hospital, and that is reflected across the country, across the world as well. So it is not true to say that children weren't affected. Children were affected, but out of 100 positive children, out of 100 children, about roughly 2 to 2.5% was the positivity rate in children. What happened was, in this second wave, we found that the presentations were very different. What we found in the first wave was most of the children had their ability to, it didn't affect their lungs as much. They had something called MISC, which was the predominant presentation. So their acute illness, that means in the first 2 weeks of their illness, they did not need hospitalization in the first wave, but we had significant post-COVID MISC as the presentation. Almost every hospital handled these children, and they had more like MISC in the first wave. However, in the second wave, we found significant numbers of COVID pneumonias, and COVID pneumonia children presented with, to the hospital within the first 4 to 7 days of the COVID illness. Okay. And those were the children who needed to go on the ventilator, needed oxygen. And our children are not like the adults. We don't have the concept of happy hypoxia. That means their oxygen levels were like around 60%, but the adult is like sitting, talking, but their oxygen levels are really low. That's like, it's called the happy hypoxia phase. We don't see that in children. Our children always, they kind of fight, till the last minute, and then when they crash, they just crash big time. That is the concern we have about children, and that is why we try to like do all of these, preparatory stages, because when a child falls ill, that means he falls ill enough to need intensive care. That's how it is. Okay. The chances of them needing just hospitalization for minor illness is very less. If they can cope, they'll cope really well at home. Okay. There is a Lancet paper that has been published. You can double check. And it's in fact the preparation for third wave is what has been written, and it is written by various Indian authors. I'll share it with Mayur, so if necessary, he can just share it with everybody else. It's a medically written article. I'm not sure about your background, but you can get your data and statistics in that. Okay. Any other questions?
Excuse
So,
me,
Jen?
ma'am.
Yeah, sure.
Ma'am, if now as people say, like we are hearing it's airborne, and even the air it's present till 4 hours like that, and I usually open the windows. I keep the windows open just for the ventilation. Like how safe we are at that time?
I mean, like you have to do the basic things. There is no shortcut there. Okay.
Okay.
You
But
just have
the
to.
whole night, if the windows are open, is it okay with that?
I mean, there is no fear because of that alone. No.
Okay. And one more question, ma'am. If there is some emergency case, in case the child have to travel, like from one state to another state, what are the precautions may be taken?
So still the COVID etiquette is the bottom line. Okay.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
masking, sanitizing, social distance. That's all. There is no shortcut to it at all. Whether you're vaccinated, not vaccinated, still the same. Avoid overcrowding, especially if they are at high risk. Okay. The comorbid children tend to catch it more. Okay.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So just to round up, what we have gone through in the last few minutes is just the ABCD approach. The A is for activity, and I just spoke about how to get the activities right, how to schedule it, how to streamline it, how to make sure that it is still a fun and a family activity for the kids. And it's a right balance of physical, creative, as well as mentally stimulating activities for the child. And doesn't become a chore or a bore for the child. And we went through a little bit about the B, which is the breathing activities, how to make it fun, but remembering that it is not to prevent COVID, but to make the child more focused, more concentrated, and helps more with the self-control rather than COVID per se, but definitely makes a difference to the child's personality, attitude, and activities as well. And then coming to communication, lots of challenges. Lots of children are showing behavioral changes, and it's important to acknowledge it. Make sure that we have a strategy of how to understand our child, allow them to express themselves safely, and we also deal with it in a positive way. And then we dealt with the diet, which is more to do with a healthy, balanced diet rather than force feeding. And I have to reiterate that there is no need for added supplements such as vitamin C, vitamin D, and everything, as long as your child is active and taking the healthy diet. I also went through a little bit about vaccines, and I want to reassure and reiterate that the incidence of flu has come down significantly, but we don't want flu to be an added burden to these children. So we still follow the COVID etiquette. If they are at a high risk, it may be helpful to continue with, to make sure that the children are fully vaccinated. I know the under fives, majority of them did not go out in the last 1 year, and a catch-up vaccination has to happen. If at all there are any vaccines that you think is absolutely essential, I would recommend making sure that your child has had the Prevnar, which is the pneumonia vaccine, and then the MMR, so, and then the annual flu vaccine if they are under 5. These are the vaccines that I would certainly recommend. And for the comorbids, to make sure that they get the flu vaccine if necessary. But discuss with your pediatrician because they will know whether your particular child is at risk. I have also told about some of the comorbid conditions, and those will need regular follow-up. So consult your pediatrician for those kind of comorbid illnesses so that the child is regularly managed and that doesn't add to the burden of COVID to them. We also discussed about the COVID etiquette and making sure that all these children are, still, even though parents are vaccinated, to follow the etiquette at all times. That's the only tried, tested, proven, working strategy. Okay. And about staying healthy. That's what I have. Shall we close the session? Thank you so much. Everybody stay safe, be prepared.
Thanks to you too, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you,
so
ma'am.
much. It was a
Thanks,
wonderful
Mayur.
session.
Thank you, doctor.
Thank you, ma'am.
We believe.
So thank you all for coming up, and we will try to organize more sessions. And thank you, ma'am, for taking your time out and coming and solving the queries of most of you all. If you have any issues or any follow-up queries, I will drop my number on the chat box. You can write into me and I will get it from madam. Thanks a lot. Okay, then have a good day.